everyone. Welcome to another episode of our series. I am your host, Cristina, and joining me today is Ms. Thomson, the Vice President of Economy and Engagement at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you.
Just to start off, we wanted to ask you if you could tell us what you do in common terms.
Okay, in common terms, my goal is, in this role specifically, is to help connect economic data to ensure that businesses are represented in government decisions, and ensuring that we are doing what we can to make Edmonton as investable as possible, ensuring that businesses are having opportunities to create wealth.
Amazing. And what drew you into business? Where did this kind of all start?
So I worked at Lululemon before Lululemon was even open in Edmonton. I was in high school and I was there for 10 years, and I like to say I had like an MBA in business through my experience with Lululemon, and so I naturally loved the retail world, and I felt very fortunate. So I would say that was probably my first kind of insight into business, and I haven't really looked back since.
And what does the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce as a whole do?
So it's interesting because the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce is actually older than the city itself. It's 136 years old, and the whole unique proposition that the Chamber of Commerce functions as is a key voice in advocacy. So when you look at economic development models, a lot of them are funded through government sources. The Edmonton Chamber of Commerce is not. So we are solely funded through our members and our events. So when we are able to advocate on behalf of the business community, we're able to do so from a unique perspective because we don't get any funding. So we can kind of say whatever we want. We can really put the businesses first without having any sort of conflict of interest or conflict of agenda. And so in really simple terms, that's why the Edmonton Chamber exists. And in terms of the functions, we want to make sure that we're there to connect businesses with other businesses. We want to ensure that we're creating opportunities, like I said, for Edmonton to be a place where businesses can make money. And I like using that term, making money, and I like saying profitability, because that shouldn't be a bad thing, because we mean it in the most inclusive way possible. We should ensure that the bigger businesses are making lots of money, and so are the smaller businesses, because wealth really does beget wealth, and we want to make sure Edmonton is home to a lot of wealthy businesses so people have better lives.
Very well said, and I think that's an important role in Edmonton for sure. If the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce had a mascot, what do you think it would be?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I actually really, really want this to happen. So we have like a new logo that we did last year. It's an E. And I would really love to see that E turned, we call him Eddie, and I want to see him turned into a mascot. So like that paperclip, you guys might be too young for this, but there was like a Microsoft paperclip that would kind of help you through. He was like a little cartoon. I'd like to see the E turned into like a cartoon mascot, and I will be the one to wear it because I love mascots. Every single time I can see a mascot, I will get a picture with it. I just think they're the best.
Awesome. In more personal terms, what are some things that you cannot live without?
Oh, that's a good question. Cereal. Cereal is something I just cannot live without. And then probably on a bit more of a serious note, like my kiddos. I would say like my kids, they're 5 and 8, and it's extremely hard being a parent, but of course I can't live without them and the whole routine and the whole kind of life that we have right now together. And then also coffee. I know it's like a very cliche response, but I like every morning I've come to love coffee, and I'm newish into coffee. It was only since I had kids, so I would say I can't live without that. And yeah, cereal. I've spent a lot of my day oscillating between coffee and having cereal.
How do you spend your free time?
Oh, I don't have any. So whatever my kids want to do. I think that especially throughout the year when they're not on summer break, it's activities, it's work. So when you break down your day, like up at 6, and I don't really get any free time, like Heather time, where I can go on Netflix or just even go on Instagram and do some doom scrolling, which I do love to do. I might get 20 minutes of that a day. And but the other thing that I would say that I cannot live without is I'm really militant about sleep. I think that's like the whole point of this the whole operating system that I have is based on sleep. And I like that saying, like, don't manage your time, manage your energy. And I think that's probably like the main way that I can do as much as I do while not, everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, yeah, just sleep. If I can sleep, I can kind of handle anything.
It's good advice. If you could start any business at this moment, what would it be?
Oh gosh, if I could start any business at this moment. I mean, a business I've always wanted to kind of operate in. I mean, I feel like there's like a business I could actually do, which is I'd love to do retail and consumer behavior consulting. I think that's something that I just think is absolutely fascinating. I'm really nosy. I like learning where people are spending their time and their money. So if I could find a clientele that would allow me to help work with whether it's like a mall or just for community, just learning where people are spending their time and their money, I would love to do that. And a really fun, I would love to have a bed and breakfast. I would absolutely, I romanticize it, and I'm sure it's really difficult and there's probably no margin to make money, but I think that would be really, really fun to do that.
On that same note, if you had any advice to someone starting a business today?
Yeah, so I would say just do it. Like, don't let perfection get in the way of good. I think so often we kind of analyze things to make sure we're making the perfect decision, and we don't incorporate the risk of not doing anything. I think that's something that people always look. They look at the risk of doing something, but they don't look at the risk of not doing something. So just try it and fail faster. I think especially I'm seeing it with a lot of businesses. We're like, oh, we were thinking about doing that, or we were going to try that. And it's like, just do it, and do it poorly, but who cares? Just do it. And then you will do it better the next time. And so I think there's a lot of inaction I see in the business community. The other thing I would say is get inspired. I like that discover versus create. And there are like the whole globe is our sort of competition now. So there's so many different ways we can get inspired as to, oh, I want to do this kind of business. This person's doing it. I like those elements, and I can take those elements, and this is how I want to incorporate my own style into whatever the business is. I really think being inspired is a great way to feel motivated.
You mentioned that inspiration. Is there a quote or a principle that inspires you or that you live by?
Ooh, I like the quote, "Do not mistake comfort for happiness." That it's a tricky one, because sometimes you also don't want to be overly productive just for the sake of having self-worth and productivity. But you also don't want to get to a point where it's like, okay, there's a difference between I really like this and I'm feeling content versus I feel like I know I could do something more. I know I could push myself. And so I really do like that saying of, you cannot mistake comfort for happiness.
Can you think of a person or experience that changed your way of life?
I mean, there's so many. Like, I can't stop thinking of different people who have contributed to my life, and I'm so grateful. I think of when I was still working at the university, and the school of retailing was there. The person I know who was in that role was leaving, and I was like, there's no way I can get that job. I just called and asked the dean, which is like absolutely wild to think that I had that kind of audacity. And I did have a relationship with the dean, and so I was like, hey, like, what's the plan with this role, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, I got the job. And so I think I'm really grateful that, it was the vice dean at the time, Dr. Kyle Murray, that he took a chance on me. And that has been like it was such an interesting fork in the road for me. And I will also say my current CEO, which is Doug Griffiths. So he and I have been working together for about 10 years almost. And I've learned so much from his world, working with municipalities, and that kind of intersection between the business community and just a whole community, and how they are so intertwined. And so I think those are probably the two individuals, and I could list a whole bunch of other people, but I would say right at the top of my head, large career impacts, but I would say those two people.
What's one lesson you've learned over the years?
Oh my gosh, so many lessons. I would say like my top, I'll say like 3 lessons that I've learned, is like, if anyone's following up with you, you've lost the plot. Like, you need to be as good as your word. And I would say one of the things that I didn't really appreciate that allowed me to have other opportunities is that I would ask and then I would deliver. And I would make sure that like nobody ever had to follow up with me. I was ready. And that's really what learning is. And I would say my second thing is that it's never going to be about the mistake. It's never about the mistake, it's how you handle the mistake. And so I would say that to me, like those two things right there have been really helpful. The other thing I would say is take like radical accountability. There's so much freedom in taking responsibility. And that doesn't mean blame, that doesn't mean fault. It's if something's happened and you don't like the outcome, you're still responsible for that. And you're accountable for how you handle that. And so I would say those are probably my top 3 lessons in terms of where I was able to be in a sticky situation, or I found an opportunity out of something that was pretty challenging. I would say like those are the kind of the 3 things that have really helped me.
What does change look like to you?
Oh, change is hard. I am not great at change. There's a great book, it's called Who Moved My Cheese, and I highly recommend it. And I'm starting to have a new perspective on change, in that it's kind of like what I was saying about that risk, is that being content and not doing anything or not putting yourself forward, future you is not going to thank you for that. And so I hate that's so cheesy when people are like, well, the only constant thing is change. And yes, that's totally true. But I think I'm a big planner, huge planner. I would love to know exactly what time things are going to happen. But the more I realize that the things that I didn't anticipate are the ones that cause me the most grief, are the things that I'm like, that's just life. And there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of things that I cannot control. And I like to focus on what I can control and do my best to just let go of the things I can't control.
Very well said. And final question, if you could tell one thing to the people of Edmonton, what would it be? We have so many amazing things here in the city. We have such a great workforce. We have a young workforce. We have amazing amenities, great quality of life. And maybe I'll take your question in a slightly different way. It's like, what's my wish for Edmonton? Like, what's something that I want to see for the future and how I want Edmontonians to show up? I want Edmonton to be one of the more beautiful cities in Canada. I think that when you look at beautification initiatives and you look at how people and places are aligned on how they look, how they feel, how the experience of vibrancy really translates into not just economic well-being, but just human well-being. And I think we underestimate that and we overlook it. So I would like to see Edmonton have a core mandate that it's the most beautiful city in Canada. And that means from architectural guidelines, still making it affordable. Like that's one thing that's a huge advantage of living in Edmonton. But I do think affordability can't be our only play. So let's make sure that it is the most beautiful city in Canada. We have the raw resources to make that happen. I think decisions are being made to counteract that. So that would be like my one wish for the future of Edmonton. From architecture to flowers to the way we design our communities, I'd like to see them physically look nicer and feel better. Thank you so much, Ms. Thomson, for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey. Thank you to our viewers, and thank you for listening to the impact of the Chamber of Commerce on our community. We hope to see you next week.